West College Football Podcast, joined as always by Clinton Boring. I am Ryan Sadkowiak, and for the first time in Inside the Pylon history, we have a recap show. It's not really a real recap show. We'll kind of touch on it a little bit, but we had no Big Ten teams playing, so nothing really to go through too much there, but we had games to watch Saturday. It was glorious.
Mm-hmm.
I screwed up and I flipped off the New Mexico-Montana State game early in the fourth quarter when New Mexico was, I think they had just gotten to the 50 to go. They were driving. They were already up 10. I'm like, well, they're about to go up 17. I'm not watching this. So I turned the Xbox on, and then Clinton texted me like an hour later. He's like, Montana State came back to win. I'm like, well, that sucks. They did not cover, though, so I took a bath this weekend on my bets. Not a good weekend for you, boy, but it was good to have games. Clinton, how are you doing this evening?
Doing good, man. I had a fantasy draft, first one of the season in Toledo today. For the fans you don't know, this league has been going on since 1982. I got in by invite only from a wait list. Some of the gentlemen in this league are 65 plus. I think the oldest guy in the league is 75. He just announced his retirement this year from the league. This is their 40th year. So it's 1984, I'm sorry, 40th year drafting. So pretty cool to be a part of that. But I spent a good bit of time traveling and coming home and then drafting in between that. I ate food that I don't usually eat, too much junk food. So it's safe to say I'm all gassed up and ready to go. So we'll go back to you there, Ryan.
I was not in Toledo today, but I like that you were at Mr. Spots. I do love me some Mr. Spots.
It was pretty good. Pretty good sandwich.
More of a boneless wing guy. It's in such an inconvenient location in Ann Arbor. It's like right next to campus, and it's like there's only it's like street parking, and there's only like 4 parking spots. So I just never get it because I don't like driving by campus, and if I Postmates it, it's like $40, and I'm just not trying to spend that much money on boneless wings and French fries. But it's really good. That was my late night drunk food at Bowling Green. They moved it downtown and they started keeping it open until like 2:30. So that was really nice. That was not good for my gut health, but it was fantastic overall. We are so we'll talk a little week 0 today. We are live once again on YouTube. You can catch the stream there at ITPCFB on the YouTube. You can follow us as well on Instagram or Twitter, preferably both, at the same handle there. We are officially into our regular season schedule. We're going Sunday night, Monday night, and, well, I don't know about Sunday night. Should we just commit to doing Sunday night?
I think so. Let's commit to Sunday night, and if we do one in the morning, we'll let you know.
Yeah, that sounds good. So you can catch us on the YouTube feed Sunday night, Monday night, and Thursday night. If you prefer to catch us the next morning in your podcast feed, that's fine too. You can find us on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your shows. We are at Inside the Pylon, a Midwest college football podcast on that platform. This week, Monday, tomorrow, we are talking a little more extensively on the Penn State West Virginia game. That is I don't know if it's the game of the weekend. Technically, game day's not going there, but we'll call it the game of the weekend. That's a big game. I know there's a lot of people on our Twitter feed who are jacked up, excited about that. So we are going to go a little more in depth on that game with Zach Sako from Locked On Lions. Is that right? Is that where he's at?
It's a Locked On network. It's either Locked On Penn State or Locked On Nittany Lions.
Okay. So we'll talk a little about that game with him, and then we will we'll also drop our picks for the Big Ten Thursday night games. We got a couple Big Ten games on Thursday night this week. And then on Thursday's show, we will do our full picks preview for the rest of the Big Ten, maybe a couple of I think there's a couple ranked games as well. Well, I think definitely one ranked game outside of the network with Georgia and Clemson. I don't think Florida's technically ranked, so that's not a ranked game against Miami. Yeah. But maybe a couple of picks for those as well. And then when we are live on that will be right in the middle of the UNC Minnesota game. So we'll definitely have that on in the background. Come hang out, watch that game with us. We'll have some live reaction to that as we're going through. It should be a fun week. I'm super excited for it. It's going to be great. It was nice to have football back this Saturday, but it was a little slower pace with just one game going on at a time. It's going to be nice to have the quad box up, have a game on the iPad, having everything going. I missed it, Clinton. We're almost there.
It was. Saying it was a joy is not enough to cover how thrilled I was to have the game back on Saturday. just to see kickoff. It was a beautiful stadium in Dublin.
Mm-hmm.
You had a little bit of weather impact the game there briefly early on with some rain. And the fact, I've never really been a fan of week 0. As much as I love college football, I feel like the matchups have been pretty lackluster. I don't remember if you remember a few years ago, the Miami and Florida week 0 game. There was a lot of turnovers. It wasn't smooth. I felt like this game, I know it's week 0. I'm not saying this was like week 10, but I feel like these teams that had a couple games under their belt, they looked a little more smooth. There were obviously errors on the quarterback parts. I've came to the determination that Haynes King does not have a very strong arm, but boy, are him and Haynes, the running back, deadly with their legs. Georgia Tech's going to be a tough out. I know Notre Dame gets them this year. We brought that. I don't know. I think they're more like an 8-4. I think Kirk brought that up on our Twitter, but they're going to be a tough 8-4. They're going to be a tough out for anybody. And I don't really know where Florida State goes from here. I like DJU. I'm just not sure what's going to happen with him leading Florida State.
Yeah, so my quick Notre Dame fan perspective, because I have to inject that into every episode, is I saw a lot of Notre Dame fans on Twitter complaining about Notre Dame's strength of schedules. If that matters at all, if Notre Dame goes 11-1, it doesn't matter there in the playoff. If they go 10-2, we were just talking about this pre-show in regards to Penn State, but that might be a little bit more of a problem just because I feel like there's going to be a dearth of 10-2 teams that are going to be battling for less spots than are available. I think I phrased that right. So maybe that's a problem, but I think that's probably the best possible outcome for Notre Dame realistically, because they do have Georgia Tech on the schedule. And we talked about that with Jack Sobel a couple of weeks ago, is that if there was one trap game on the Irish schedule, it felt like Georgia Tech, because they're a team that's dangerous offensively. They were not very good defensively last year, but definitely looked a little improved in this game. How much of that is week 0? How much of that is maybe Florida State's just not as good as we thought? I mean, we'll find out over the coming weeks, but the Irish will not, you can't sleep on Georgia Tech now. They already took down a top 10 team. That can't be a trap game anymore. That was like last year when, you're looking at Duke after Ohio State. You're like, oh, that's going to be a trap game because, you're playing off right after Ohio State. That's a good Duke team that's probably not going to get the respect it deserves. Well, then they beat Clemson in week 1, and all of a sudden that wasn't a trap game anymore. And Notre Dame still should have lost that game. So interesting happenings in Fighting Irish land, but that's not the point of the show today. I want to talk a little bit about Florida State to start, because I know they're not in our coverage area, but this is going to, I think this game could potentially impact a couple of Big Ten teams, because we talked about it on our top 25 episode last week. I had Florida State in the top 10, firmly in the place to get an at-large bid for the playoff, if not win the ACC outright. And we'll talk about this here in a little bit when we get to our playoff predictions, but I'm out on Florida State, man. Like, I was so just like disgust. It's not the right word because I don't care about Florida State, but like, they looked awful offensively. Like the step down from Jordan Travis to DJU was so vast that it looks like they're going to be way too easy to defend this year. They clearly don't have the established playmakers out wide yet to replace the Johnny Wilson and the Keon Coleman. And how much of the passing game was on DJU versus the receivers' inability to get separation versus Mike Norvell just not calling a great game? That's not for me to say, but it looks like a team that if you have a half decent defense with some cornerbacks who can play a little man coverage, the book on Florida State is just going to be jam the receivers at the line, put 7 or 8 guys in the box and force them to beat you deep. And DJU did not show that he was capable of doing that. And if you don't have a quarterback who's capable of making plays or receivers who are capable of getting open, how, I think the ACC is going to be a little spunkier this year than people give it credit for. Maybe there's not going to be that outright elite team at the top that you're sitting there and being like, wow, this team definitely deserves that first round bye. There's probably going to be some consternation about whoever ends up winning the ACC getting that first round bye. But Georgia Tech showed us there's, Virginia Tech. Miami's going to have to fall under this because they haven't shown anything yet. Like there are teams they're rising teams in the ACC that appear poised to unseat Florida State at the top.
I think my biggest takeaway, and almost right away, was the way that Georgia Tech owned the line of scrimmage. I preach it all the time. You own the trenches, you win the game. And that certainly, you have to have good quarterback play. And DJU missed quite a few open guys. It's not like they were wide open, but it was, if you lead him a little bit, he's going to catch it and make another 5-10 yards after. And the throw was in the dirt. The guy didn't have a chance for it. I know he has a big arm, but he needs you to have an accurate arm. I don't care if you can throw 70 yards. If you can't hit the target, it doesn't matter. But the trench play, when Georgia Tech lined up on offense, they blew that D-line off the ball. And even though they're replacing guys, all I heard coming in was, well, Florida State still got the D-line. They're going to be tough. Georgia Tech took you for a ride like 90% of the time, man. Like, you didn't make them work. And then their defensive line did good work in containing Florida State. I am with you. Keon Coleman and Johnny Wilson being gone, Jaheim Bell at tight end being gone, hurts. No Trey Benson to save you this year. I'm not saying Roydell Williams can't become a great back, but you don't have those guys to lean on anymore. And Mike Norvell's going to have to coach his ass off to get this team. I'm just going to say in the playoff for now. You're obviously 0-1 in the ACC. The season is not dead. There's plenty of time. You just have to coach his ass off with this team to get them where they want to be. And the hard part is you spent all offseason being pissed off that you didn't make the playoff, and you came right out week 1 or week 0, traveled to Dublin, Ireland, and lost a game that you probably shouldn't have. That's no disrespect to Georgia Tech.
I mean, they opened as 13-point favorites. They still closed as almost. I don't think it ever got down to 9.5. They still closed as a double-digit favorite, and they lost outright. And there was never really. I mean, aside from the first drive of that game, after that, there was never really a point where it felt like Florida State was in control. And you mentioned the defensive line. On College Game Day, Pete Thamel saying, and then it's parroted uncritically by Bud Elliott on Twitter, that Florida State has the best starting defensive line in the nation. They didn't even have the best starting defensive line on the field in this football game.
No.
They got pushed around, and Georgia Tech has a pretty good offensive line. It's not like they're getting pushed around by a mid-major team here. They got a good experienced line, but if you're being touted as the best defensive line in the nation, you got to show it, and you didn't. You didn't. You got bullied up and down the field. You let Georgia Tech run all over you. And I know they got a tough offense. It's always difficult when you have that running threat at quarterback, but they weren't filling gaps. They were lost. And again, they put a lot on tape to show how to beat you. Like that is just a fact of the matter. Like that's how you beat Florida State. You just motion, you push them around, RPOs. It's going to be tough for him this year. And, yeah, man, I had another point and I completely forgot what it was. So
I was going to make another one was the defensive coordinator, Tyler Santucci, right? For Georgia.
Oh, yeah.
Tech. What an improvement from last year. They couldn't stop a lick on defense at times last year, and they came out and played one hell of a game. What an improvement. We've been talking this whole time. Can USC make that change? Now, this is one game. You got to do it over the course of the season, but great start for Georgia Tech to show that where you needed to make the improvements you did. We knew you were going to go on offense, but if you want the upsets, you got to have the defense to finish it. That's why they couldn't finish Georgia last year. They got the defense.
Yeah, I thought it was a little weird that Mike Elko didn't bring him with A&M. Bring him to A&M with him. Because Duke had a great defense last year, and how much of that was Santucci versus Mike Elko, who's a defensive guy. Who's to say? But clearly Santucci's got some bones to him. Oh, I remembered my point. And last thing on Florida State here, you mentioned the 0-1 record to start. It's not a death sentence like it used to be, but is probably the worst possible outcome because it's not like you're playing if you're Penn State this weekend, hypothetically, and you lose that game. It's like, okay, you're 0-1, but it was a non-conference game. You still have everything in front of you for the Big Ten. If you're Florida State, not only are you 0-1, you're 0-1 in conference play too. So you're already behind the 8 ball. The joke was the first team in ACC history to outright hold 17th place. So there you go. You're 17th place in the ACC, Florida State Seminoles. It's going to be it'll be uphill sledding for them. They got a couple tough games, and we'll kind of go through a little bit here. But if you listen to our top 25 episode last week, I was high enough on Florida State that they would have been in my playoff, and I have completely flip-flopped on that. I am out on Florida State. So
want a quick recap? I just thought in general the whole weekend was fun. Just like you said, I turned off the New Mexico Montana State game. Little man and I were playing. They're up 2 scores. I'm going to back off. I go to take the dog for a walk, and I'm like, holy cow, they won. And then I come in, start the Nevada game with SMU, and I'm like, man, Nevada's winning. I even tweeted at, I might as well call him our friend now, our friend from the Solid Verbal, Ty Hildenbrandt, that, Ty, I don't like how this game's starting for SMU, and I know he's very high on him, and I'm high on him as well. And he's just like, ugh. I'm like, I feel you, man. Like, I don't know. And then SMU's battling, and the wife comes down. She goes, would we be able to watch something on TV together, or should I go do something else? I'm like, all right, sure. Let's watch our show. So then she falls asleep. So I'm right back to the game, and we're in the 4th quarter. And I'm like, are you kidding me?
No,
And
they
then
did not look good.
SMU gained the momentum, and that's where lesser teams lose. Like, you have to hold them at bay. You can't let them swing. And SMU got it. Preston Stone made plays when he needed to. I haven't watched much of Preston Stone, and I want you to watch him at some point. Maybe you watched him some last night. His release looks weird to me.
It is.
Comes out very weird.
So he was good last year. I think they said on the broadcast he broke his fibula late in the season. They were doing this weird yo-yo thing with him and the backup quarterback in the first
Jenkins,
half.
I think.
Yeah, I thought that was kind of weird. And then they pretty much just went to Stone in the second half, and they started moving the ball a little bit better. So maybe they kind of figured it out there. But yeah, man, we were talking. I don't remember if we talked about it on this show or if we talked about it offline, but I don't know. We definitely talked about it on this show because I think I had SMU at the back half of my top 25, and part of the reason was, the schedule looked manageable this year. This looked like a team that, with what they had coming back, like they could make some noise in there, even though they're moving up to the Power Four now. It looked like a team that could make some noise, and they got some time to figure it out. They who the hell is HCU?
Holy Cross?
They play someone called, it might be Holy Cross. They play someone called HCU next week, so I'm assuming they will win that game. And then they got BYU the week after that before a bye, and BYU is not exactly a fantastic football team. But I mean, if we didn't think Nevada was a fantastic football team either, and
gave them a game.
Nevada took them to the last few minutes of that game. But after that bye, you got TCU, Florida State, and at Louisville. I mean, I'm sitting here, at least. I'm not going to rope you into my nonsense here, but I'm talking about SMU as maybe a dark horse to make some noise in the ACC, maybe not necessarily get to the championship game, but a team that could be in it into November. And after that, you got to sit there and think, were we out ahead of our skis here a little bit? So a lot of interesting happenings in the ACC. And to kind of bring this full circle back to the point of this actual podcast is, it's potentially interesting for kind of some of those teams in the Big Ten because, like I said, I'm already out on Florida State. I've already moved them out of my playoff, so which opens up another spot. So if the ACC is a little bit more of a dogfight than we thought it was going to be, there's not this elite team at the top. Maybe we're looking at the ACC as being a one bid conference this year and instead of two. So that's something that could potentially open up another spot in the playoff for a Big Ten team, one of these teams in the Midwest. So let's get into our playoff predictions here, Clinton.
Or you could be Pat McAfee and just boldly put Virginia Tech in out of nowhere.
Yeah, I mean, Brett McMurphy had him in as the 7th seed too, which that's like I could buy Virginia Tech as an ACC champion more than I could as a 7th seed because I could see them.
I don't think they're getting a first at large.
Because I could just see them going 9-3, 10-2, and getting into the ACC title game and beating, Miami, Florida State, Clemson, whoever they end up playing and getting that bid. Hey, we're talking about them as an at-large team. That more or less means that they're probably going to have to be 10-2, 11-1 in the regular season, and that's a little bit of a bridge too far for me. No disrespect, Kurt.
Nope. So we want to go read off our top 4 each, and then we can let's get into the matchups.
Yeah, so we can do our conference champions first. So a reminder for everyone listening, if you did not see the ESPN graphic 900 times over the weekend, how this is going to work out. Your top 4 seeds are the highest ranked conference champions. They get the first round buys. Doesn't matter what they're seeded in the final playoff rankings. You could have a team that's outside of the top 25 getting a first round bye. That's never going to happen, but hypothetically it could. The remaining 8 teams are then seeded 5 through 12. Reminder that there is a 5th conference champion, which will again likely always be your highest ranked group of 5 champion that will get into the playoff. If this team is not ranked somewhere in the top 12, they are just going to be automatically slotted in as the 12th seed. So more often than not, to get an at-large bid in this playoff, you will have to be ranked in the top 11, depending on how some of these conference champions shake out. Looking at you, Big 12 and ACC, you may have to be a top 10 team. You could still be ranked 11 and still get left out, depending on, if there's a bid stealer in the ACC or the Big 12. That's never going to happen in the Big 10 or the SEC because we're just operating under the assumption that those 2 conference championship games will be played between top 10 teams. So how it's going to shake out is your 5-12 matchup will play the 4 seed in the second round. Your 8-9 matchup will play the 1 seed in the second round. 6-11 winner will play the 3rd seed, and the 10-7 winner will play the 2 seed. There's no reseeding, so hypothetically, if the 12 seed upsets the 5 seed, they still play the 4 seed in the second round. They will not get rematched to play the 1 seed. It is like your typical March Madness bracket.
A normal bracket? I'm looking
A
at
normal
UNFL.
bracket. Yes, a normal bracket. I hate the reseeding. That's so stupid. Stop it.
Yep.
Just play it through. Easier to fill out that way. So do you want to get us started, Clinton? Who do you have as your number 1 seed?
My number 1 overall seed for the first 2024 12-team playoff is the Georgia Bulldogs. I have them winning the SEC. They have a tough schedule. I think Kirby's, I've said it before, one of the best motivators. I think they're probably going to get like an 11-1 regular season, finish 12-1. Tons of talent with Carson Beck, one of the best O-lines Georgia's had, and they always play defense. So they're the number 1 seed for me.
This is bad radio, but I agree with you. I also have Georgia at number 1. I gave them the slight edge over Ohio State at number. No, wait a minute. Yes, I gave them the slight edge over Ohio State at number 2 because I think Ohio State's going to lose to Oregon before avenging that in the Big Ten title game. And I think even if both teams finish 12-1, I think they're going to give a little bit more agency to Georgia because Georgia's regular season schedule is far more difficult than what Ohio State gets this year.
Yep. So that's your number 2. So my number 2 is the Ohio State Buckeyes. We've talked about it before. Defense returns a ton. They added to it with Caleb Downs, Will Howard, Judkins, Henderson, deadly offense, plus the receivers outside. Let's see if Ryan Day's bold moves in the offseason pay off for the Ohio State Buckeyes this year.
You want to give me your number 3?
Number 3. Back and forth on this one. I have a little more faith in this team than my 4 seed, so I'm going with the Utah Utes at number 3, winners of the Big 12 championship. He's shaking his head, folks, because he has the same number 3.
I also have Utah. So I had to put zero thought into this because I put all the thought in last week when we did our top 25. So I have Utah finishing the regular season at number 8. And so for that reason, they are my Big 12 champion.
Ryan and I have probably mentioned on here before, but at least talked outside the show. This could be an 8-4 Utah team, a 9-3 Utah that is in the playoff. And that's also meaning my ACC champion is looking 9-3, 8-4.
Yep.
I'm not confident these teams are going to roll in 11-1.
No, I am. I think I'm less confident about my Big 12 and ACC team than I am about the at-large teams that I have, just because there's so much variability, and especially if you look at a team like Utah, right? Like I'm giving Utah the edge because I think Kyle Whittingham is one of like the 3 best coaches in college football. The season that they had last year without their quarterback and without their top weapon in Brant Keithy, they got them both this year, man. You got Cam Rising's doing the I've been in college for 900 years and I am a literal man who can rent a car without having to buy insurance playing with.
He's literally Van Wilder.
He's literally Van Wilder. I think that's going to give him a huge advantage. The continuity on the staff, the continuity with the roster, I think that's going to be a big advantage for Utah in the new look Big 12 this year. So I'm riding with the Utes as my Big 12 champ.
Yep. I did note a little bit on their schedule. Baylor week 2. If Dave Aranda's supposedly calling defense again for this team. Dave Aranda could have that team ready. They have to go to Oklahoma State, Arizona week 5, Iowa State week 13, UFC week 14. So it's not easy.
No,
but damn, they're tough. I love the toughness that Whittingham puts in his teams, and I think Cam Rising is an exact representation of what he wants leading his team.
Number 4, I have Miami, which I don't feel great about. I don't feel great about it. I actually feel a little bit better about it than I did a week ago because I don't think Florida State is. And I get that it's week 0 and a lot of weird stuff happens, and the team that you are in week 0 is not the team that you are, even at the end of September. So, but Florida State very well could rebound and finish, run the table and finish, probably not 11-1, but 10-2, and it would not be surprising at all. If they win every ACC game on the rest of their schedule, I would not be shocked. But that being said, I feel like a hypocrite having Miami here after just dogging on Florida State the way I did because, Miami, we have a transfer quarterback as well. And I have a point that I want to make about transfer quarterbacks because I think everyone looks at Joe Burrow and Michael Penix and Bo Nix and thinks they have this thought about what a transfer portal quarterback is. But if you think about how many quarterbacks transfer and how many, like, look back at the last 2 years, how many transfer quarterbacks were starting at different programs, like that's 3 guys out of 100.
Tons.
Like the hit rate on a transfer portal quarterback being elite is not high. It is not high at all. And if you look at some of these examples that people like to parrot to, like Joe Burrow, when he transferred, he had never played at Ohio State. He transferred because he wanted to play. Like this was complete untapped potential. He was at LSU for 2 years and he was not good his first year. He came back to LSU for his last year because he was not going to get drafted. This was not a guy who came back because, oh, I got my NIL bag and they're paying me $2 million a stay or whatever. He wasn't getting drafted. Like that was an undrafted free agent right there. And he came back and it was a coalescence of perfect events for LSU that turned into that. You look at a guy like Bo Nix. He transfers from Auburn because it just wasn't working out there. I think the combination of the pressure and I think did Malzahn get fired when he left? I don't remember.
Maybe somewhere.
Maybe the coaching changed too, but even a guy like Bo Nix, he was at Oregon for 2 years. And he didn't go pro after his first one because, again, he was not going to get drafted very highly. He had 2 years in that system to become the quarterback that he did. And we talked about it a little bit too. I mean, he's a guy that how much of that was him versus the Oregon system. I mean, some of it had to have been him because he got drafted pretty highly. But, again, 2 years in that system. And then you look at a guy like Michael Penix, a guy who flashed at Indiana under Kalen DeBoer, and then he got hurt. And when he came back from that ACL injury, he was not good, which is not uncommon for guys their first year after an ACL injury. So he transfers, he reunites with Kalen DeBoer, good his first year, and then he blows up. Like that's the common theme is 2 years at a particular spot. And we're looking now here at, a guy like DJU who's on his 3rd team in 5 years. I got a kick seeing the recruiting ranking during his recruiting class years. It was him and CJ Stroud. CJ Stroud's now in his 2nd year in the NFL after winning Rookie of the Year last year. And DJU's playing on his 3rd college team in 5 years. Like at a certain point, if you're in college for that long, there's a reason. It's because you got nowhere else to go. Yep. Like you're trying to live out the college football dream. You're trying to maximize whatever money you can before the real world comes calling. And it's like, you're going to be on a practice squad for 2 years and then you're out of football. You're going back to coaching or going pro in something other than sports. So I have like if you look at what kind of portal quarterback is going to be successful, like I'm very apprehensive about a guy like Cam Ward because again, we're talking about a guy who's now on his 3rd school. And granted, the jump up from FCS to FBS that he made with Washington State is a little different than what we were talking about with some of these other guys. And then you can kind of make the argument that him leaving Washington State was because of everything that was going on with Washington State and them not being a Power 5 team anymore. But again, he was a guy that had a decent year last year. You can make whatever comments you want about the talent around him. He had some pretty good receivers last year, but didn't play great in some of their bigger games. And he was a guy that, he had originally declared for the draft, but it didn't sound like he was going to get drafted very highly. So he made the decision to come back and try to play one more year in college. So I don't know how this is going to work out. And another pause that I have with Cam Ward is like, he wasn't really highly sought after. Like, I think, did we talk about this? Like the dichotomy between what fans of some of these teams looking for a portal quarterback wanted versus what the coaching staffs wanted was wildly different. Like Ohio State wasn't in on him. Notre Dame wasn't in on him. And I mean, there's no disrespect to Miami because I'm sitting here talking about them as my hypothetical ACC champ, but they've been ass for 2 decades. Like this isn't a good program anymore. Like you got to show it, man. So I'm a little apprehensive about Cam Ward. I'm a little bit higher on them now with Damian Martinez. He should have some good weapons around him. They should be a lot better on defense this year, but I think this is more so this is a big time projection pick, man. I don't feel good about this at all.
I think the biggest thing, quick back to Mike Norvell. Mike Norvell made a really good season last year out of utilizing the transfer portal. Miami kind of looks that way this year. You just have to hit with the right guys. And I think for a quarterback to be successful, you have to have the right pieces around him, which is where I kind of feel like you get to Will Howard. Will Howard, we've said it before, you're driving a Ferrari. You don't need to be all world to win with Ohio State this year. You just need to keep it on the road, make plays when you're asked to. You're right. Nix and Penix had 2 years, or as Desmond Howard likes to say, Penix. They had 2 years within their systems to build that. You're not getting that with quarterbacks this year.
Mm-mm.
You're getting one and done. Cam Ward, Riley Leonard, Will Howard, Daquan Fenn, Curtis Rourke. You guys are coming in, you get 1 year, and that's it. That's a you got to make the offense pretty favorable, but I think we feel comfortable about some of these bigger teams that are safeguarded. We haven't seen Miami do anything in a long time, so you don't know if Cam Ward is safeguarded to be able to have the success that I feel certain that Will Howard and Dylan Gabriel are set up to have this year. So you're right. It's a bit of a risky prediction. I like it, though. Again, you're relying on a running back that's also coming from the transfer portal, who I think is a phenomenal running back, one of the best in college football coming in. That should really help. I've heard Miami's got a pretty stout O-line and pretty good D-line. So there you go. There's your trench play. So they already got the receiver in Restrepo, however you want to say his last name. So good for them. I think this is a really good pick on your part, Ryan. I think it's bold. However, for our first time, we do not have the same team at number 4.
Thank
My
God.
ACC champion is the Clemson Tigers.
Ooh.
I talked with my brother-in-law about this today, and he feels like I went through with it. I was like, hey, who do you think? Let's go through these champions. And he thinks Dabo's kind of fading out. And I agree with that to an extent. But one thing Dabo doesn't do, he doesn't lose by double digits. And his teams are respectable every year. They're always going to have a good D-line. I think Klubnik limits the amount of turnovers this year. We've already talked about the fumble stuff last year with Clemson.
Mm-hmm.
They're stout on defense. I think the key thing is, can they get good enough O-line play? You're going to find that out this week against Georgia.
Yes.
And where do the receivers come from? There's no T. Higgins. There's no Sammy Watkins. There's no DeAndre Hopkins coming to save this team. You got to be able to, or Mike Williams, you got to be able to find something to help him out. We already said, I don't think this is an 11-1 Clemson. I think this is a 9-3 Clemson potentially making the 4 seed. And they may not even be the 1 seed heading into the ACC championship. You already said maybe it's Miami, maybe it's Florida State. Hell, maybe it's Virginia Tech at this point. I don't know. Maybe it's Georgia Tech. Maybe. And Clemson just beats them and they get the seed. I'm not saying this is an all-world Clemson, but I think this is a Clemson Tiger team who steps up this year. They bounce back and they win the ACC.
I just I don't know what to make of Clemson because you look at the games that the games they lost last year were just weird. Mm-hmm. But we're also talking about just this consistent downward trend and Dabo's just stark refusal to supplement his roster with guys in the transfer portal. It's dude, especially at that receiver position, there's no easier position in the world to recruit from the portal than wide receiver. You got to do something there, man. You can't just look at this group and be like, hey, we're good here. But you look at Clemson, for Clemson and Miami, it's not an overtly difficult schedule, but it's tricky. And I think we're going to learn a lot about both teams in week 1. Miami's at Florida, and I think people are down on Florida. And it almost feels like that's as much of a product of the schedule as anything else, but it's still a talented team, and it's at the Swamp. So that's going to be a tough game for the Hurricanes. And then we're kicking off week 1 with Georgia versus Clemson in the Mercedes-Benz Stadium. Sorry, not the Superdome. So more or less a home game for Georgia. The Clemson fans should still travel for that, but we're both high on Georgia. I mean, everyone's high on Georgia. Let's not.
Yeah, nobody's down on Georgia.
No one is doubting Georgia. So if Georgia wins the national title and I have to listen to Nolan Smith say no one believed in us, I'm going to lose my freaking mind because everyone believes in you, Georgia.
Everyone believes in you.
You were the preseason number 1 team. Everyone thinks you're going to win the SEC. Freaking Nick Saban thinks you are going to win the SEC. He said it on game day.
You got bashed for that too by Bama fans.
Everyone believes in you. Yep. Stop saying no one believes in you. But if you look at there's tricky spots on both of these schedules. So, we talked about the App State game for Clemson. That's a good football team. That is a good football team. There's a bye week, and then they got to play NC State. And I think NC State's been a darling for some teams. I've seen some NC State ACC championship game participation picks, at least not necessarily outright wins, but that's a good frisky football team who beat Clemson last year. I mean, they should kick the crap out of Stanford. But then you got a Florida State team that I'm not even going to say should be angry because I thought they were going to be angry for this game and they looked like ass. So I'm just not. But it's at Doak Campbell, so you never know. You got a couple tap-ins against Wake Forest and Virginia before a bye week. Before you got Louisville and Virginia Tech on back-to-back weeks. So we're not sitting here looking at this as like a murderer's row. Mm-hmm. But I could see them losing any single one of those games.
Especially if they play how they did last year. If you don't improve your turnover ratios, you're going to lose 4 more of those games.
Like this isn't even your college Clemson. Clinton, Clemson. Good Lord, say that 5 times fast. Like this Clemson team since Trevor Lawrence left has been remarkably average at best. Mm-hmm. But then like looking at Miami, after their non-conference after that Florida game is terrible. Holy smokes. You got Florida A&M, Ball State, and USF. They should win. I mean, the USF game would actually be kind of interesting because I think that's a pretty good team too. But you got Virginia Tech. You're at Louisville. You're hosting Florida State. You still got to play Duke and Georgia Tech. And I don't know that, Duke's going to be particularly great this year, but we just saw what Georgia Tech can do. And then you're finishing the season at Syracuse right before the week before the ACC title game. So, I mean, there's some bumpy spots on this Miami schedule too. And I don't think either of these teams deserve any sort of benefit of the doubt to say, well, I could see them walking through that. I mean, if either of them are 8-4, I wouldn't be shocked. So I don't know what to make of the ACC this year. And I feel like I know even less about it than I did a week ago based on the results of the game this past weekend. So I don't feel good about my Miami pick. I don't know how great you feel about your Clemson pick, but given the Florida State result, I do not have any more ACC teams in my playoff. They're a one and done for me.
Oh, we'll have to wait and see for mine. When we go 5-12, do you just want to read it off as our matchup? Like here's my 12.
Yeah, let's do the 5-12.
Okay. So I'll start us off. My number 5 team. Y'all aren't giving them enough confidence. The Alabama Crimson Tide. Nice. They will lose to Georgia in the SEC championship game, but they will still fit in at the 5. As Ryan mentioned, I don't think we're not going to punish these teams too much for a loss in the conference title game. Yes, it's one extra game. You have to be held to something for that because it is another loss, but if that's Bama's second loss, I'm not going to put in another 10-2 team over them when they didn't play in their conference championship and get an at-large. So Bama's 5. Then my number 12, the one I've been most eager, and I try to look at everyone's brackets and listen to different people talk about. I've heard Memphis, I've heard Liberty, I've heard Boise State. I'm going Appalachian State. The aforementioned Appalachian State. I think this team is a tricky matchup for Clemson in week 2, especially coming off Georgia, whether they win or lose. We talk about how tricky Purdue will be for Oregon coming off the Ohio State game. Mm-hmm. You don't even have to win that. Just look respectable. Then you're going to get Marshall. You're going to get Liberty. And you're going to get James Madison, which all set up nicely for them. Yep. They're going to have to probably overcome a Texas State team who might also be vying for a playoff spot. And I think in the Sun Belt Championship. They got 4 new starters on the O-line, which is a bit concerning. But Joey Aguilar emerged really well last year, almost 3,800 yards passing and 33 TDs. So that helps ease the concerns a little bit when you're stable at quarterback. And he has one of the top receiving corps in the Sun Belt. They also have 9 starters back on their defense, which was subpar for their standards in 2023. So I really like this team. I first of all, I love their field. We already talked about that. But I love them. It's Appalachian State Mountaineers, correct? Yep. I love App State this year. They're my 12th seed to match up against Alabama.
So I also have SEC at 5. Before I get into this, I feel like my hot take about the conference championship games is going to be, if we're talking about Big Ten or SEC, I feel like what's going to end up happening is, well, obviously the winner of that game is going to get a first round bye, but I feel like the loser of that game is just going to fall. If they were the lower ranked team, I feel like they're just going to stay where they were. And if they're the higher ranked team, I feel like they're just going to go to where the lower ranked team was ranked, or they'll be like 5-6. Unless there's like a 12-0 Notre Dame. Like I think that your Big Ten championship game and SEC championship game losers more often than not are going to be ranked in that 5-6 spot. Mm-hmm. Just because I can't see them putting. So for number 5, I have Texas. There, I know that I went on a little tangent about how maybe this is the top 10 team that is not ranked at the end of the year, but I mean the schedule itself is not particularly difficult. Obviously, the game against Michigan early in the season will be telling on the trajectory of this team this year, but then you got the back-to-back Red River rivalry and Georgia games smack dab in the middle of the season. That's not a particularly favorable situation. But then you got at Vanderbilt and then a bye week before what could be a shell of a Florida Gators team, Arkansas, Kentucky, and Texas A&M to end the season. So, I mean, if Texas is a little down, any of those could be tricky, but I think they'll still be fine. Probably lose to Georgia midseason, or I think they'll go 1-1 in that Oklahoma-Georgia stretch. I don't think they'll get both, but I think they'll finish 11-1 and then lose to Georgia in the title game.
Quick shout out to Brett. You're welcome for the show, Brett. Thank you for commenting and tuning into the show. We appreciate you taking the time to watch us.
Yes, thank you, Brett. I didn't see that. That's cool of you for tuning in. I hope you're not a Florida State fan because I've said some very mean things about your team tonight. At my 12 seed, I'm on the Memphis train. I think they're going to be pretty good this year. And if you look at their schedule, it sets up pretty well for getting that at the group of 5 spot. You got a chance at Florida State this year. You got a chance to make some noise there, but you know, Troy's been traditionally a pretty good team. USF's a team that's on the rise. UTSA has been a team that's pretty good. Tulane's has been a team that's pretty good. I think that like Liberty's probably going to go 12-0 again because they don't play anyone. Mm-hmm. But I think that's going to end up being a situation where what happened against Oregon last year is going to work against them because they didn't play anyone last year and then got dog walked against Oregon. And I know that technically we're not supposed to use previous year's matchups to factor into this year, but I don't think this Liberty team's as good as last year's team. And I think that's going to end up hurting them considering they also don't play anyone this year. Well, they play App State, so maybe not. But anyway, that's my 5-12 matchup. I got Texas versus Memphis.
Brett has confirmed he is not a Florida State fan. Good for you, Brett. We're happy for you.
Nice.
Not that I hate the Seminoles. I do love the Seminoles. I hate
Florida
not the
State.
Start of the year that we wanted.
I don't hate
All
Florida
right,
State.
so we're going 5-12, and then we're going to jump right into the 6-11. Ryan, who you got?
6-11. I have Oregon at 6 again, as I am on record saying I think they beat Ohio State in the regular season and then lose the rematch. So maybe Oregon might actually be my 5 seed here. Now that I'm thinking about this out loud, whatever. I got Oregon at 6. I envision them going 11-1 in the regular season, or probably 11-1 in the regular season. Mm-hmm. They'll lose to someone.
I think it's fair to say it's going to be hard to have an undefeated team this season.
No,
I think there's going to be a couple 11-1s, 10-2s.
Yes. Yeah, and then I have them losing to Ohio State, so I don't really have much more to add than that. I know we talked about them pretty extensively over the last couple episodes, so don't need to go any more in depth on that. Number 11, I have Mizzou. They are the beneficiary of my being out on Florida State. They were my I think I had Florida State either 10 or 11, and I had Mizzou ranked right behind them. So Mizzou's getting in this situation. They don't play anyone this year. They should very easily be 11-1.
Yeah, they do play Bama. Come on.
They do play Bama, but like all in all, they play probably 2 teams that should beat them. If they're any worse than 10-2, it is a failed season for the Mizzou Tigers. I think they'll probably go 11-1, maybe 10-2. I have more likely 10-2, but they're an interesting team because again, I think they're going to be right in that mix of 10-2 teams. And given how relatively soft that schedule is, I wonder if that ends up biting them in the butt. But in this instance, I don't think it will. I got them in at 11.
All right. I just blanked. We're 6-11. Good Lord, Clinton. It's been a long day, guys. Number 6 for me, the Notre Dame Fighting Irish against the Ole Miss Running Rebels. I went back and forth on what I should do with this 11 seed. And here was what I came to. I think Ole Miss may be 9-3, and I think they're going to get in because of how tough the SEC is and how tough their schedule is. Now, that would obviously be that Missouri isn't sitting at 10-2, right? Unless they really favor Ole Miss over Missouri. But I think you're looking at a potential 9-3 Ole Miss team that gets over a 10-2 Iowa to take that 11 seed, as we discussed. If Iowa loses a second game, we talked about, what else do they have to fall back on? Unless one of those 10 wins is over Ohio State, then you're like, well, how the hell did you lose 2 games?
Yep.
If Iowa's 11-1, they're in.
Yes.
If they're 10-2 and they're going against a 10-2 Missouri or a 10-2 Ole Miss or even a 9-3 Ole Miss, given Ole Miss's schedule, I think they have the chance to lose out. I would love to see the Hawkeyes in here.
Clinton, if Iowa's 11-1, not only are they going to be in the playoff, they're probably going to be hosting a game.
Mm-hmm. I agree. Yeah, I'm with you. As much as I believe them, I think they're going to trip up somewhere else, and I think that second loss is what keeps them out of the playoff.
It's going to be really hard to do the no offense thing 2 years in a row.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know how improved the offense is to buy in on them yet.
Yep, absolutely. So I think that's a really fun matchup, though, if you're sitting there. Ole Miss coming up to Notre Dame in December. Oh, what a great matchup. Lane Kiffin against Marcus Freeman.
The Deuce Knight Bowl!
Yeah. Then
he's going to Auburn.
Then you got Riley Leonard, Jackson Dart, 2 probably Heisman contending quarterbacks. A great defensive line again to match up against Notre Dame's, what I'm assuming by the end of the season will be a good offensive line, and the Notre Dame's pass rush against Ole Miss's offensive line. Like
from your mouth to God's ears, man. From your mouth to God's ears.
Yep. But as we said, Ole Miss has got a stout schedule. My biggest note on this and why I have them in is Lane Kiffin addressed finally where they need to be addressed with the portal, and that is the trenches. And they went out and got Walter Nolan, and then Princely, Umana Milan. Hopefully I did that right.
Can't help you with that one, bud.
And then we've already talked about the guys they have on offense, but he finally addressed where they need to be. I got him at the 11 seed, and what a fun matchup that would be.
That would be a lot of fun. Brett said he listened to last week's show and thought we had some good takes. That's the first time anyone's ever told us, Brett. Brett. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you.
We are a good takes podcast, Clinton. Where are we going? Are we going 7-10?
We got the 7-10.
Number 7, I have Alabama. I think they're going to be good again. I think Kalen DeBoer is going to help Jalen Milroe take that step to the next level to be a more functional passer. I think they still have really good weapons out wide, and I still think they're going to have a really good defense.
Yep.
So if anyone's choosing to sleep on Bama, do so at your own peril. Now that I've said all that, they're probably going to go like 8-4, but whatever.
Not happening.
If this last weekend was any indication, if I'm betting on your team, they are going to lose. Texas A&M fans, you watch out because I already got money on you. Speaking of which, number 10, I have Notre Dame.
There you go. Okay.
Y'all know where I stand on the Irish. I'm still deathly terrified of this offensive line, but I think that they are at least functional at quarterback this year in a way that they were not last year. They're more functional at offensive coordinator than they were last year. Good God, they have one of the best offensive coordinators in college football, and I think that he's going to be able to utilize Riley Leonard in a way that kind of mitigates the offensive line, but especially in that first game, I don't know how much it's going to matter because he's going to be running for his life a lot, I fear. I think they probably lose that first game. Now that Florida State lost, I don't know if that's a loss. I think 10-2 is still the floor for this team. And erring on the side of I'm always a pessimist, I have them at 10-2, and they'll be playing at Alabama on the first round of the playoff instead of hosting someone. Although if they were hosting, I'm not going to lie to you, Clinton, I would empty my bank account to go to a first-round Notre Dame playoff game. I saw some playoff predictions that had the 8-9 game being Notre Dame at Michigan.
Ooh, baby.
I would get thrown out of the big house.
As long as you're live with a microphone on.
One of our PTs, her husband works for Ann Arbor PD. I might have to text him and be like, "Hey Jeff, can you sit next to me during this game in your full police garb so I don't die?"
That would be pretty fun to see.
I would enjoy that. That would
not
be,
you
that
dying,
would be
but you getting thrown out of the big.
Listen, man, I've lived the full life. It's all good.
All right,
he died doing what he loved, watching Notre Dame lose.
My 7-10. The Penn State Nittany Lions, my Big Ten champion losers. And the reason I have them here is because I'm speculating Notre Dame sitting at 11-1. I think Bama's obviously going to be really high, and I think if Bama's a high rank, they're going to get the benefit of the doubt over a Penn State in the Big Ten title. I'm making the leap of faith with you, Ryan. The number 10 Miami Hurricanes.
I cannot believe you have two ACC teams in here. I cannot believe it. I can't believe you've done this.
I'm taking a leaf. I'm taking a leaf out of your book and taking a leap of fake.
Did you smoke?
Good Lord.
Did you smoke some leaf before you made that playoff prediction?
No, but I swear to God, I think being around guys just ripping cigs and cigars today must have infiltrated my brain. And
buddy, you're definitely suffering from some oxygen deprivation, and you should
I'm cooked.
Seek help.
But yes, I think Penn State and Miami would be a great matchup. Miami's got to come up to the cold of the North.
That'd be fun. That would.
I'm buying the juju. I've kind of been with them when we did our little early summer rankings of top 10. I had Miami in it. Gosh, this is even just 1 week ago. I believe I had Miami in the top 10 again last week. That's right. We both had them 9, I think. I'm sticking with them. I'm going Hurricanes. I think it would be a really, really fun matchup. Cam Ward, Drew Aller, Damian Martinez, the Allen and Singleton duo. What a great matchup there. Super fun. We've already broke down both their schedules, so I'm not going to rehash all these. Hey, look, you figured out how to put comments on it.
I figured it out. Shout out, Brett.
That's awesome, man. Hey, guys, send us chats. We can now put you up on the screen.
You send me your comments.
We're slow learners, but we do learn.
Yeah, just don't call me slow, and I'll put it up on the screen.
All right, number 8-9 matchup for me. There's 2 teams I haven't named yet, folks. One from the Big Ten. Everybody's thinking, well, he said last week they're going to lose 2 games on their schedule. The Oregon Ducks, they will be in the playoff, and they will be very, very dangerous as the 8th seed. And they're going to host, horns down, I'm going to offend people, horns down, Texas Longhorns in Autzen Stadium. What a fun banger matchup that's going to be. Uniform combo is going to be great. I'm sure Oregon's going to bring out Ryan's favorite. What's your favorite Oregon combo that you actually hate? Something with a duck. You got the little flutters on the back of the helmet.
Oh no, I don't. I'm not like a big fan of the the chrome where they have the wings because you can't really see it.
Yeah,
I like the old school. I don't know if they've worn it in a couple years, but the one where it's like forest green on the front. It's got the yellow Oregon, the yellow number, and then it's the black shoulders with the chrome steel plate spackling on the shoulders.
Yep. But Ducks and Horns, what a fun matchup it would be. Originally, when I was going through this, I had Ducks and Bama. Because I had Bama at 10 and Texas at 5. And your hot take the other day convinced me just on the surface enough to move Texas. And I think that would also be a great matchup to have there.
Well, clearly my hot take had no impact on me because we're riding with Texas, baby. 5 seed.
Nice. Who you got? 8-9. I know you got Penn State in there somewhere. Yeah,
I have Penn State at 9. I have Ole Miss at 8. I think. Okay. I don't know what to make of Penn State. I think there's a very real chance that they go 11-1. I also think that they might lose this weekend. So I'm not really sure what to do with them. If they're 11-1, they'll probably be the 8th seed. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. I don't know. I don't really have a good rationale for my placement here.
I originally, when I wrote my bracket up yesterday, I sent you a snap of. I had Penn State at the 5 also because I was like, man, if that Big Ten game, if they're 11-1 and the SEC title loser is already 10-2, that Penn State might sneak in at the 5. And I'm just like, you know what? I really want to put insurance on myself in case they lose this weekend. And then they're sitting at 10-2 in the Big Ten championship. I was like, yeah, I'm going to back them off a little bit, just a little.
This is going to be so much easier to do next year when we see how they actually do these final rankings. Because I'm of the mind that there's going to be some weird ranking manipulation to give somebody a home field advantage that they don't deserve. Speaking of which, my number 8 team is Ole Miss. I just wonder, you know what I mean? So I have 5 SEC teams in this, which I don't remember who on the game day broadcast had 5 SEC teams. And my first thought was, wow, that's the stupidest thing I've ever seen. There's no way that could happen. And I didn't do the schedule analysis to see if this is actually possible. I'm pretty sure it is. But I just with some of these teams, I wonder if it's a 7-10 or an 8-9 matchup if the SEC gets a little extra boost because people think that they're better than they actually are.
Yeah.
I think that's my only justification for Ole Miss over Penn State. And I mean, you mentioned the schedule too. I do think that there is a world where an 11-1 Penn State that only lost to Ohio State gets ranked lower than a 10-2 Ole Miss because of the difficulty of Ole Miss's schedule.
Mm-hmm.
Like Penn State's schedule, the rest of it's not super challenging. Although
at USC could be tough, depending on how USC plays.
Yeah, I just like I saw someone else on Twitter ask, "Do we know the Big Ten's tiebreaker yet?" So I feel vindicated that I'm not the only idiot who doesn't know. I still don't think it's been released.
No, I think we have the SECs now, right?
The SEC released it last week, and I think the first tiebreaker is the first two. It's like head to head, and then it's the combined record of your opponent, like shared opponent, and there are opponents that you conference opponents. Maybe I don't remember. Yeah. I'd have to look it up again. So I wonder, like, as if both Oregon and Penn State are 11-1 going in. Well, I guess if in this instance, I'll have Oregon, Ohio State, and Penn State all going 11-1.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Penn State and Oregon
tiebreaker at that point.
Penn State and Oregon do not play each other, so Ohio State beating Penn State would give them the tiebreaker.
Mm-hmm.
Oregon beating Ohio State would give them the tiebreaker over Ohio State. I literally don't know how that would play out.
I think that would get you most likely how this would shake out. That would give you your Oregon and Ohio State. Because Penn State wouldn't have one to stand on. They would need the third piece in there to have beaten Oregon to be the tiebreaker, and they wouldn't have it.
Yes. So
I think you would get your rematch there.
Okay. I'm not going to spend any more thought on that because my head is already hurting trying to think about it.
Let's
those got to come out this week. They have to come out this week. Like they have to come out.
Ryan, this is the Big Ten that flip-flopped their rules in the middle of the season during COVID.
Fair enough. I guess anything is possible.
But okay. Kevin Warren's not leading the Big Ten anymore, thankfully. So
yeah. Well, I don't. Anyway.
All right.
Don't ask
Who are
about the new guy?
Ryan Sakoviak's quarterfinal matchups. What do we got?
So my 12-5, I have Texas winning that one. I think that's pretty obvious. It's going to take a weird year for the 12 seed to beat the 5 seed. I don't think that year is this year. 8-9 matchup. I have Ole Miss beating Penn State. I think Yinzer Lion Mark, he's one of our Twitter followers. He does some Penn State work. I think I saw him tweet sometime over the weekend, if Ole Miss and Penn State play each other, who ends up winning that game is going to be whoever has the home field, and I agree with him. So slight advantage to Ole Miss there because they have the home field advantage. I have Oregon beating Mizzou. That is going to be, no disrespect to Alabama, by far Mizzou's toughest game of the season, and I don't know that Mizzou has enough on defense to slow down Oregon's offense. And I'm going with the homer pick just because I can't have every favorite winning a first round matchup. I have Notre Dame beating Alabama. I don't think that's going to happen, but I needed to be different. I couldn't go chalk in the first round. I couldn't do it. I don't have it like that. That's a vibes only pick. I have no legitimate reason to pick that game the way that I just did, other than maybe Riley Leonard's really good. But
so you have Utah, Notre Dame.
No.
So you have Utah at 3?
I have Utah.
I'm sorry. Notre Dame's your 10. My apologies. I'm looking at mine. I have Notre Dame as the 6. So the 6-11 winner would go to Utah.
Yes. So my second round matchups would be Miami against Texas, Georgia against Ole Miss, Utah against Oregon, and Ohio State against Notre Dame. If that happens, Clinton, we can't have a podcast that week. It would just be it would be us screaming obscenities at each other. I'd have to move out of my house for a week.
If we had Notre Dame, Ohio State again,
my girlfriend and I would kill each other.
That would be fun.
It would not be fun. No.
Your girlfriend's an OSU fan?
She went to Ohio State, yeah.
I knew I liked Sam. Way to go, Sam. She's the smart one in that house.
So she has a burner on Twitter for some reason because I asked her.
Does her burner follow us?
Yes. She's like, I retweet all your guys' stuff and I vote on your polls even though I have no idea what 90% of them mean.
Is Sam's burner the one that has the weird yellow smiley face?
Yes, that's exactly it. It's Sam Bunch of Numbers.
I'm not going to lie, and you can tell her I said this. I thought it was one of those fake porn accounts. It was being bought and following us.
Yeah.
And I was like, all right, well, cool.
Oh, no. That's funny.
Fine if porn bots want to retweet our stuff. I don't care.
We were talking about this. I don't know why she asked me a question about our show today, and she's like, and I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to like figure out a way to just mention you in every episode just to be an asshole. She's like, okay. So there you go, Sam. Shout out, Sam.
Nice. That's awesome. All right, my semifinal matchups. I'm going to start with the 5-12 because I think it's intriguing. I had Bama versus App State. I'm going to have Bama coming out of that to match up with my 4 seed, the Dabo Sweeneys, the Fighting Dabo Sweeneys, Clemson Tigers. So we're getting Clemson, Bama, second round.
Love that.
Then since we did the 4, we're going to trudge on over to the 3 seed matchup. I kind of already alluded to this. The Utah Utes will be facing. I just lost my brain fart again. Notre Dame, the Fighting Irish, against the Utah Utes. What an intriguing matchup there, right?
Yes.
Number 2.
We'll keep you around a little bit, Clinton.
Number 2, we're going to throw it all the way back, folks, to the 2003 Fiesta Bowl National Championship. The Ohio State Buckeyes against the Miami Hurricanes.
Oh, that'd be fun. That would be fun.
Sorry, Miami. Ohio State, as you say, won't need a ref to help them win this one. And then my number 1 seed, the Georgia Bulldogs, are going to face off against the Oregon Ducks. Rematch from a few years ago when Dan Lanning unfortunately made his coaching debut and got taken to the slaughterhouse. The Duck was removed from existence in that game.
That was not great.
All right, Ryan, give us your semifinals.
Okay, so Texas, Miami. I have Texas winning that game. I think they have more talent. I think they probably have the better quarterback. I don't know if they actually have the better lines, but probably a little too much for Miami. I think the lights are going to get a little bit too bright for Cristobal in that game. So we have our it's technically not an upset because I think Texas will actually be probably ranked higher than Miami at the end of the year, but that'll be our first upset, our 5-4 upset. Georgia, Ole Miss. I think Georgia wins that game pretty handily. For a second time, because they play Ole Miss this year, right? I didn't make that up.
No, I don't think they do. Do they miss them? Do they get Ole Miss get Bama? Ole Miss gets LSU.
Hold on.
Let's confirm that.
No, they play. They're at Ole Miss this year. They're at Ole Miss on the 9th. Okay, yeah, I think Georgia wins the rematch there. I'm gonna go a little off the board, and I have Utah upsetting Oregon, even though I guess it technically wouldn't be an upset because they are the 3 seed. I think the Whittingham factor comes through in that game, even though we're talking about 2 exceptionally experienced quarterbacks. I think in that particular environment, the Utes defense will be a little better and will stun the Ducks in the semifinals. And then Ohio State, Notre Dame, I have Ohio State winning. I mean, that's 2 great defenses. Ohio State's is still better and should have a better offense than Notre Dame. I hope it's a close game. I hope they don't play because it will make my life exponentially worse if those 2 teams play. So I'm hoping I avoid that. But yeah.
All right.
Good things.
I am going to go.
Good vibes only, Clinton.
This is a tough one. I feel like I need the Who Wants to Be a Millionaire music here. That tough question when you need to use a lifeline or not, answer the question wrong, you're going home without the $750,000. My first semifinal matchup that I will reveal will be the Ohio State Buckeyes defeating the Miami Hurricanes to play against.
Oh, shoot. Did I not tell you who my semifinal matchups were, or my semifinal matchups were? I just told you who was going to win the quarterfinal games.
Well, that would be your semifinal matchup.
Well, I got Texas playing Georgia and then Utah playing Ohio State.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't actually spell that out.
Nope. I'm spelling it out. Ohio State against the Utah Utes. We had just matched Ryan.
Wait, you think Notre Dame is going to lose to Utah? What the hell? Who the hell do you think? I'm kidding.
You know what? I was going to go Notre Dame, and I just couldn't do it because they make me a little bit nervous.
That's fair.
I have more confidence that Utah, they're going to have, depending on what their matchup could be there for the 3, I don't know, could be a little easier path.
I can't believe you. I literally cannot believe you. I thought that I was unique going off the board, picking Utah to win the semifinal or the quarterfinal game, and you copied me. You just copied me again.
Well, you're about to get real off the charts here.
All right, because I'm assuming you're going to have Georgia.
Alabama as my other first team in the other semifinal to play against the Oregon Ducks. Georgia eliminated in the quarterfinals.
Oh, wow. Oh, my gosh. Wow.
The Oregon Ducks. So for all the Duck fans,
I'm stunned.
I was a hater to say that
I'm
you were going
stunned.
to lose 2 games in the regular season. I'm looking at you, Duck fans. Quack, quack, quack. I got you going to the semifinals to play against Kalen DeBoer and the Alabama Crimson Tide when everybody thought Dan Lanning was going to be the choice of the Tide. Ducks, Tide, Bucks, Utes, my Final Four.
Wow. Okay, so at least one of our semifinals is different.
You might get a completely different national championship here. I might be feeling the Utes, baby.
That would be insane if Utah beat Ohio State in the semifinals.
Hey, they damn near did it a few years ago.
That would be fun. That would be fun for college football. That'd be really fun.
I would be depressed, but yes.
Listen, you just stabbed me in the heart by saying Utah was going to beat Notre Dame. So
if you guys went and lost your left tackle, I would have had more confidence.
Yeah, well, I don't have any. I never have any confidence in this team. It's been nothing but death and depression beaten into my brain the last 21 years. So, semifinal number 1, I have Texas rematching Georgia. Boy, we got a bunch of rematches in my bracket here. I really hope it doesn't play out like this because rematches suck. I want some new stuff. I have Georgia winning this game. I mean, we've talked ad nauseum about Georgia as much as a Midwest college football podcast can talk about an SEC team. They're loaded everywhere. Offensive line, defensive line. I think their quarterback is better. They probably have better skill position talent. I think Georgia beats them. Utah versus Ohio State. I don't know that this game will be particularly close. Utah might not score Ohio State by 30 at least.
That would be a shame for a semifinal.
I agree. No, I agree. My hope with this is at least by the time, like there's definitely going to be a first round game or two that's a clunker, and it's like, whatever, that's fine. There might be a semifinal game or two that's a clunker, just given how the Big 12 and ACC are going to occupy one of those spots. But hopefully by the time we get to the semis, it's kind of like what last year's semifinals was, where it's just a bunch of Titans slugging at each other.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So Ryan has Georgia versus Ohio State, the 1-2 seed in the national championship.
Real original Ryan.
If I had a piece of chalk here, I'd hand it to you, but I don't.
Listen, my top 25 rankings that we went through last week were how I think that they're going to finish the season.
It's true.
So that's how we end up here.
All right, folks. I'm going to start probably with the a little easier projection here. I'm not taking the Utah Utes to beat Ohio State. I think it could be an interesting game, given the toughness and the time of the year. But I'm going to go Ohio State over the Utah Utes, which will then place them as the home team in the national championship. And they will square off against the Oregon Ducks for the national championship. We will 100% be getting back Big Ten national champion, folks. We will get a back-to-back Big Ten national champion.
So what you are saying is Ohio State and Oregon are going to play 3 times this year.
No, they're going to play twice because I don't have them playing in the Big Ten championship.
Who's playing in the Big Ten championship?
I told you I had Ohio State, Penn State.
Oh, I must have zoned out for half a second. Okay,
I do not have them playing 3 times.
All right, I hate this pick a little less then. This would actually be really fun. This would be a fun matchup.
You waited since October 12th all the way to this national championship to get this game again because we're going to have a burner on October 12th. It's going to be a great game, no matter who wins or loses. And you're going to wait, and you're going to get a rematch here. And then after Ryan reveals his, I will reveal to you who I have as the national champion of 2024. 2025 at that point.
I'm sorry, Sam. I have Ohio State winning, which means they're not going to win the national championship because I've just jinxed them.
You picked the Buckeyes to beat Georgia.
It's now or never. It's now or never, man. If you don't win it this year with everything that's coming back with what you brought in the portal, it's never happening for Ryan Day. Like, I know Georgia's good, and there's no shame. Listen, I'm not sitting here saying if Ohio State loses the national title game, they need to get rid of Ryan Day, and anyone who says that they should needs to be thrown into the frickin' Scioto River. But Scioto, fuck off. The Scioto River, throw them in there. But man, it's got to happen this year because I get Ohio State's recruiting well. Like, you're reloading every year, but like it's like Michigan last year. It's the perfect storm of events. You got the schedule, you got the experience, you got the dogs to do it. Like, it's got to come together. So I'm going to drink the Kool-Aid. I'm going to buy the hype. I think it's going to happen, which means it won't happen. So sorry, Buckeyes fans. You can blame me if it doesn't happen.
All right. So this would be, I would have a 2 versus 8 for our national championship.
See, that'd be fun. That would be fun.
Again, I'm hearing that damn Who Wants to Be a Millionaire music pounding in my head. Because
You should have told me before the show. I would have tried to download it.
When I walked into today, I had Ohio State, Georgia.
Oh, and thank God that you didn't.
I had a change of heart. And maybe I'm picking with my Big Ten fandom here because I think Georgia's elite. And this is probably not going to happen in the national championship. But I'm going to be the Ohio State homer, and I'm taking the Buckeyes.
We are so original.
National championship. I think everything Ryan Day did this offseason, and I've called him being in savage mode since December happened. Not many times do you just have your starting quarterback walk out who led you to an 11-1 record. I think this is a different team. I think there's a different mentality. I think we see for back-to-back years the Michigan strategy. And if you guys have been with us since day one, you heard Ryan talk about, I believe, on show number 2, what team can replicate the Michigan path. And it's going to be Ohio State because they've built this team or brought this team back very similar to the way Michigan did. A little different probably on the NIL money, but the player buy-in.
A lot different on the NIL money.
The player buy-in to come in and win one and avenge what they've lost. Ohio State wins the national championship.
I will say about the NIL money, I think Florida State fans were complaining a lot this weekend about their defensive tackles getting a ton of money and driving Ferraris and playing like absolute garbage this weekend. So I'm actually, but that thing in pro football too, where the guy gets the big fat contract and then he just stops giving a shit. Yeah. I wonder how much of that, not with Ohio State specifically, but I wonder how much of that we're going to start seeing with these kids having more money than they know what to do with. And they're like, I don't need to do anything. And then they just suck.
Absolutely. Yep.
So that'll be fascinating. Yeah, man, I can't argue with that. I think they're the most complete team in the country. Well, maybe not the most complete team in the country. I think Georgia might have something to say about that. But their defense should be their defense should be elite. They don't need Will Howard to be elite. I think they can just kind of let him go out there and exist, and they should be fine. But we'll see. We will see. Cool, man. Unless you have anything else you want to add to that, that is all for us this evening. Shout out Brett for hanging out with us all night. Absolutely. Appreciate it, man. Absolutely. Respect.
And maybe anyone else that might have tuned in here or there, thank you for tuning in. Thank you to all the viewers and the Twitter followers and the people who followed us on YouTube. As Ryan said earlier in the show, please like, subscribe, follow on Twitter and YouTube, and even on Instagram. I know I haven't been the best about uploading to Instagram, but our YouTube and Twitter continue to grow, and that's all thanks to you guys, and we really appreciate it. So catch us on at ITP CFB. We got a really fun show tomorrow. Here comes Ryan's paper. I can actually see that a little better this time.
I didn't write like chicken scratch. We're going to save it right here next to our over-under wins.
Is that mine and yours?
Yeah, no, it's just mine.
Oh, okay.
We're going to revisit this in a couple months just to see how poopy I ended up doing. Yep. Did I interrupt you? I'm sorry.
No, you're good. I'm just saying, exciting show tomorrow. Ryan and I are going to break it up just a little bit. We're going to have Zach on. We're going to go live for that, get a little West Virginia Penn State preview. And then Ryan and I will do a little bit of week 1 talk. We'll do our little week 1 picks for the Thursday games. It's going to be a fun week. I'm really excited. I cannot wait to get to Thursday. I don't want to rush tomorrow by, but this work week can kiss my ass. I am ready to get to Thursday because I'm off Thursday too. So I cannot wait.
I work 7 to 7 Thursday, so I'm going to be a zombie. Good for me.
I'm going to be having 2 toddlers all day, so I'm sure when I come on here, I will have black marks under my eyes, either from being punched or being tired. We'll see.
I do have a beer though, so I will be partaking in Thursday. So
all right,
it'll be fun
this week.
All right, yeah, guys, we'll see you at 9 p.m. tomorrow night. We'll be going live again with Zach Seiko from Locked on Penn State, talking Penn State, West Virginia. Thanks for tuning in this evening. We'll see y'all tomorrow.
See you.